Hey folks, it's Mr. Fingland once more with our COVID-19 series on the Grapes of Wrath and the study guide curriculum that we sent home or are sending home as we speak. So today, folks, we're looking at chapter 4 in the Grapes of Wrath. And again, with the structure of the Grapes of Wrath, it's zoom in, zoom out, right? So chapter 1, we zoomed out, we're looking at all farmers. Chapter 2, we zoomed in, we met Tom Joad. We did a little bit of that Freya model, to tell you a little bit about Tom Joad. Today, in chapter 3, we learn a lot more about Tom Joad. So if you haven't finished that Freya model yet, zoom in, look at Tom Joad, get some details about him. Chapter 4 is pretty juicy in terms of talking about Tom Joad, his lifestyle, his language, his beliefs, lots of things here. Chapter 4 is also really important because he meets the second most important figure in the entire book. This guy is named Jim Casey. Now, Jim Casey, initials JC, is a preacher, or at least he's a former preacher. He used to be a traveling preacher going and spreading Christianity through the different places in Oklahoma. But the special thing about Jim Casey is he gave up on that, or at least it seems like it. But if you start listening to what he has to say, a lot of what he has to say is kind of religious. So it's almost like he's given up on Christianity, but he sort of created a whole new religion. And that might help you answer one of those questions, maybe question 5 in the study guide in the chapter 4 section, right? We're at the point now we're in the study guide. We have a bunch of things we learn, but the dialogue between Jim Casey and Tom Joad, it's a great dialogue because they're both grown men. But Casey must be a bit older because he actually baptized Tom Joad. Has some great stories to tell about that. Right? So Jim Casey, great figure, and he's someone who's no longer believes in something he used to believe in. So he's a great character that way. He also had some trouble sticking to the rules as a preacher. All right. So if you look closely, you'll see that he gave up the preaching not just because he didn't believe what he had to say anymore, but there were certain actions that are actually referenced in a segment I'm going to read today that were even more compelling as to why maybe he should keep away from the ministry. All right. Anyway, this great dialogue here that I think addresses the question 2. Question 2 is quite a deep question, right? But this is about a revelation that Jim Casey has, and he talks about it in this paragraph. It's on page 23, right? Third paragraph down. And Casey is speaking first. "I'm glad you told me," said Casey. "I used to think it was just me. Finally give me such pain, I quit and went off by myself and give her a damn good thinking about." He doubled up his legs and scratched between his dry, dusty toes. "I says to myself, what's gnawing at you? Is it the screwing? And I says, no, it's the sin. And I says, why is it then, when a fella ought to be just about mule-ass proof against sin and all full up of Jesus, why is it that that's the time a fella gets fingering his pants buttons?" He laid 2 fingers down in his palm in rhythm, as though he gently placed each word there side by side. I says, maybe it ain't a sin. Maybe it's just the way folks is. Maybe we've been whipping the hell out of ourselves for nothing. And I thought how some sisters took to beating themselves with a 3-foot shag of barbed wire, and I thought how maybe they like to hurt themselves, and maybe I like to hurt myself. Well, I was laying under a tree when I figured that out, and I went to sleep. And it come night, and it was dark when I come to. There was a coyote squawking nearby. Before I knowed it, I was saying out loud, the hell with it, there ain't no sin and there ain't no virtue. There's just stuff people do. It's all part of the same thing, and some of the things folks do is nice, and some ain't nice, but that's as far as any man got a right to say. He paused and looked up from the palm of his hand where he had laid down the words. Joad was grinning at him, but Joad's eyes were sharp and interested too. "You give her a going over," he said. "You figured her out." Casey spoke again, and his voice rang with pain and confusion. I says, "What's this called, this spirit?" And I says, "It's love. I love people so much I'm fit to bust sometimes." And I says, do you love Jesus? Well, I thought, and finally I said, no, I don't know nobody named Jesus. I know a bunch of stories, but I only love people. And sometimes I love them fit to bust, and I want to make them happy. So I've been preaching something I thought would make them happy. And then I've been talking a hell of a lot. Maybe you wonder about me using bad words. Well, they ain't bad to me no more. They're just words folks use. So, nice piece of dialogue on 23, right? Where Jim Casey's out there having this revelation, right? That what he's been preaching is maybe not what he believes. And that's a great moment in anyone's life, to have that experience in that moment when, you move out on your own and have your own beliefs. Maybe not beliefs exactly that other people have wanted you to have, but you have them. That's a great moment, and Jim Casey's a great character because of that. He becomes this really quasi-religious character in this book, meaning he sort of has his own religion, but it's more a religion of humanity than anything else. Right? Some other things that the study guide asks you to do is sort of compare Jim Casey and Tom Joad. And in that, if you saw towards the end of that passage, Tom's a very different character than Jim Casey. But Tom has a lot of respect for Jim. And what I want you to look out for as we move forward with this book is, the philosophy that Jim Casey has, and how Tom listens very closely to that. And at moments in the book, he takes on that philosophy and himself carries out that philosophy. So Jim Casey is a really important figure. Like that last question says, maybe even a Christ-like figure. So we're looking at a lot of symbolism in this piece. And, Jim Casey's, his initials, JC, which parallel Jesus Christ, that's not an accident, right? So that might be something you look forward to in looking at this piece, is maybe Steinbeck's presenting sort of a new philosophy for this time period. Something interesting to look at. Anyway, enjoy that chapter. It's really a fascinating chapter. We have Joad trying to get back to his home, and that doesn't really work out because he's going to find that his family has moved. His home is no longer his home. There's cotton planted right through the doorway at his house. No one's living there. There are a few relics of possessions and things from his family, but they're gone. Right? You're going to meet one new character there. His name's Muley Graves. So keep an eye out for Muley Graves and what Muley says has happened to the community, and we'll be in good footing. All right? Good job, guys. Keep it up. Thank you.